Good morning. This is Doreen with ThoughtStorm Journal. I want to discuss a slightly controversial subject, and that is the subject of tolerance. I used to think that tolerance was a virtue, but I don't think that anymore, and I'll tell you why. We're all told that we need to have more tolerance for everyone, especially people that we blatantly disagree with. We're led to believe that tolerance will make the world a better place. If we all just knuckle under and tolerate everyone else, everything will be great. And this is what's going to create world peace, right? No, I'm here to tell you this is something that's just not going to work, not in the way we hope. There's something important that we need to understand first. Whenever you're tolerating something, it's putting you into a state of forcing yourself to do something that you don't really resonate with. It's forcing you to do something you don't really want to do. And the reason you don't want to do it is because you haven't resolved it in your mind. You haven't really learned why you need to tolerate this in the first place. So your unconscious or even conscious mind is resisting the tolerating. And as you resist the tolerating, you actually build resentment inside yourself for what you're actually trying to find tolerance for. So is that really being tolerant? When you're in the midst of a disagreement or an outright argument with someone on a controversial subject, you can't just stop yourself in the middle of it and tell yourself, no, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to tolerate this person's viewpoint no matter what I think of it. You just can't do that. It will only make you less tolerant in the long run. What you have to do is understand why you need to be tolerant. And I'm going to tell you something that may not set very well with you. Everyone has a very good reason for believing or doing the things that they do. I repeat, everyone has a good reason for believing and doing what they do. So, if we want to be good humans and find tolerance for things and coexist with others in a potentially peaceful world, it's our job to understand those with whom we disagree. Now, keep in mind, I did say that everyone has a reason for what they believe and do, and this may mean that people can find good reasons to, say, kill someone. But if you get the chance to ask them why they killed this person, they might tell you all kinds of good reasons why they did it. They may have all kinds of reasons why they did it that are perfectly reasonable to them by their own perceptions, possibly fed by mental illness. But that's not the kind of stuff I'm talking about here. I'm not advocating that we try to understand and tolerate sometimes extreme behaviors that aren't acceptable to anyone. I'm talking about your average everyday disagreements about our social fabric, politics, philosophical and religious beliefs, etc., that seem to take place so often these days. When I see people arguing about a topic in forums like social media and clearly disagreeing and getting angry and frustrated, it can quite often escalate to name-calling and character assassinations. And though we may feel justified in insulting another person, especially if we feel they're insulting us, sometimes just by virtue of asking us to believe their opinion instead of our own, starting this kind of behavior or returning the same kind of blows is, quite frankly, immature. Kind of like two kids in a sandbox fighting over the same shovel. Oh yeah? Well, you're just a doo-doo head. You're stupid. This is what these kind of arguments between supposed adults start to sound like. And these supposed adults might actually be appalled if they saw children acting this way and claim that one was bullying the other. And quite frankly, I often cringe at the level of childishness I hear between adults. But why do these things happen? I don't really know. Is it because our parents never scolded us for acting this way and never made us behave differently? Or is it because when we got older and got around other childish people, we decided it was okay for us to be childish too? Or is it just that we never learned an adult alternative? Actually, it really doesn't matter. But since society has accepted this behavior for such a long time, what I'm about to say may sound cheesy or unbelievable. Children will always act like children. But adults should exhibit adult behavior when another person expresses an opinion that is contrary to theirs. I almost never hear one person ask the other, "Well, tell me why it is you think that," or "I'm just curious, why do you have that particular perception?" Those would be very grown-up responses that our society hasn't observed in a really long time. It's the act of turning what could be an argument into a discussion, or better yet, turning it to a means of understanding each other, which is actually what we're given communication skills for in the first place. If you don't discuss why that person got upset with you because you made that wisecrack about breast cancer, we'll never understand why. That person's just being too sensitive. I didn't say anything wrong. But when you question that person as to why he or she got upset, they tell you the story of how they lost their mother and all three of their sisters to breast cancer, and they've battled with it themselves, and they fear that they might be the next to die. And that's why they got upset. But how would you know that unless you ask them why it bothers them so much? Everyone has a reason they feel the way they feel. People get caught up in the arguing part and the idea of winning the argument, but very rarely does anyone try to have a productive discussion in which both parties come out actually understanding each other better. But this is where tolerance, I mean genuine bona fide tolerance, actually comes from. It's a kind of tolerance that people can actually live with and not grow resentful. It's the kind of tolerance that can last and be easily taught to our children. How can you be angry at this other person if you understand them? And the only way to understand is to act like an adult and have an adult-level discussion and ask the pertinent questions. And at the risk of sounding cheesier still, you might come out a little wiser for the experience.